Welcome to a redo of webinar number 24 from August 25th, 2022. Today I'm going to demonstrate how to get VBA macros that you have edited from one survey fieldbook to another. As most of you know, VBA macros are the only way to get point features in the survey fieldbook rotated. So if you use the MicroStation Rotate tool to rotate graphics that are associated with features in your survey fieldbook, the rotation will revert back to its original state anytime you redraw your survey fieldbook features. Or if you deactivate and then reactivate your survey fieldbook, such as when you have to edit the terrain boundary. So Bentley has set up several different VBA macros that can be used to assign a rotation to point features in the survey fieldbook. And these macros are important for signs, for utility poles, for inlets, arrows, or any other point feature that you want to have oriented properly in your base map. You have to use these VBA macros to get them rotated, and if you want it to stick. The problem is that when you need to create a new survey fieldbook in a new DGN, for example, when the DGN you are working in gets corrupted for some reason, and we've all experienced this happening, you can still salvage your survey fieldbook by exporting it as the Bentley survey format or SQLite file. You can then import this SQLite file into a new DGN and into a new survey fieldbook. However, all of those VBA macros that you have edited do not import. They are overwritten with the standard ODOT VBA macros that we have set up. They are actually in the SQLite file, but they do not import. They are overwritten. So if you've got hundreds of these features that you've edited the VBA macros on, this can be a big problem, leading to a lot of extra time going back and fixing them. Bentley is aware of the problem, but here at ODOT, we will not have the fix until we upgrade to the next newest version, which could be a year or even more down the road. So we need a workaround to do that. And I have found a way to get the edited VBA macros into an Excel spreadsheet and then back into a new field book. It is a bit of a clunky process, but it works. So let me demo the process. So I have a ORD DGN file here that I got from Region 2 with some good data for demonstrating this process. We've got two intersections, actually 4 intersections with 2 different areas of data. And all this data is in one field book. And I've got several point features in here. I've got signs, I've got poles, I've got inlets, and all of these have edited VBA macros on them. I can open up my survey details. So in my field books, under my all point features, I can right click and go to details and sort by my VBA macro column. Going to sort descending to get all the VBA macros at the top. So here I have my VBA macros. So this first one, I can left click over here and go to it, is a left turn arrow, field code LT. The VBA macro is o.serve, annotate, and then rotate cell angle. So it's rotating the cell to a specific angle as specified here, so -70. So the way these work, if I can go in here and just change that to -45, and you see that that arrow has rotated. So I don't want to do that. I'm going to go back, and I have lost my items up here. There we go. So just to kind of give a quick demo of the VBA macros, here I have an arrow that I would like to add a VBA macro on because it doesn't have one. So I'm going to isolate this arrow that is on the all feature. So here I have this feature 50311 T01. Field code all, it does not have a VBA macro on it, so it is not rotated. If I go use the MicroStation commands to rotate this, I'm gonna left click and select it and right click and press and go to rotate. I can rotate it in here. And I really think that's supposed to be a left arrow. So let me change the field code on that to left arrow, since that looks like a left turn lane. Let's see here. Lots of ways I can change the field code. This is just one of them. So there I just changed it to left, and notice when I did that, it went back to the way it was rotated, which is the standard way it's going to rotate based upon the survey field book. So let me go find that left arrow here. Right here. So if I want to add a VBA macro in there, I have stored a list of VBA macros in a OneNote file. You can do this in a Word file, and I recommend doing this. Let me pull that up. So it is right here. So these are the common VBA macros that you will use when working in a base map. So this rotate cell angle to a hard angle that you specify. We can rotate arrow attribute. Again, this would be used if you had an attribute that was put in the field on these. It would rotate it to whatever that attribute from the Leica equipment was put in. And then this rotate cell line is another one that you can use a lot. So this rotate cell line and this rotate cell angle are probably going to be used the most. So the rotate cell line rotates the cell based upon whatever field code for a line you have here. So it goes to that point, to that cell. It looks within a 20-foot radius for an EP and then rotates that cell to whatever angle you have here in relation to that line for the field code here. So I'm going to demonstrate how this works in this left turn arrow. So what I like to do is, I have a list of these, so I just copy that text right there with a Control-C. And then in my VBA macro column for that particular one, I'll just paste it in there. I'm going to hit enter. And notice it did rotate, but it is not correct. So I want to rotate it about this. It's actually probably finding an EP way over here. I think that is an EP. Yeah, that's an EP. So it is likely finding it. So it's looking 20 feet from this cell for an EP and then rotating it about 25 degrees. So if I set that to 90, so that EP is going this way, so it's setting it perpendicular to that EP. I don't really want to rotate it to that EP. I want to rotate it to this double yellow right here, which is a YD. So I can go up and change this field code to YD. And I'm going to leave it at 90 because I want it to be perpendicular to that. Hit enter. And notice it rotates it perpendicular to this double yellow line right here. So that is the only way to permanently rotate these point features. So if I wanted to get to my VBA macros to maybe make my own list of these, I can do it through my drawing workflow, the utilities tab, and then the macros grouping right here. You can navigate down, you can click this drop down button, and you'll see some of these say o.serve on them, some of them say view set. There's lots of different macros that are used. I'm going to go down and try and find the o.serve with the hard angle. So here we've got rotate cell angle right here, o.serve annotate. So I can left click on that and then hit this pencil icon to pull up the VBA macro manager. And because I have that selected and press the pencil icon, it brings me to that one. So what I did in my list is I just copied this top portion here that is annotated out. And this has a description of the actual VBA macro and then how it works. So it says the macro will rotate a cell to a hard-coded angle. And you can go through and read these. And I just made my list from this. for things to copy. So the problem is if your file gets corrupted and you export your SQLite to start a new file, all of these VBA macros get overwritten. So I'm going to go ahead and export my survey fieldbook here. Export to. So if I right click on my fieldbook name, go to export to Bentley survey format. And I've already done this once. I'm gonna overwrite the one that I did. So I've now exported that SQLite file. So for the sake of time, I am not going to create a new DGN. I'm just going to turn off this particular fieldbook that I'm working in. And I'm going to create a new fieldbook. So I'm going to go to my survey workflow, fieldbook tab, and do a new fieldbook. And I'm going to call this import new, just to differentiate. And I right click on that new fieldbook, go to import and Bentley survey format. Select the name of that previous fieldbook. I do not need a prefix or suffix on this, and I click import. So I have exported that SQLite file from my original VBA, or excuse me, from my original survey fieldbook with my edited VBA macros. I have now, in theory, likely had to create a new DGN and a new survey fieldbook, and I've just imported that SQLite Bentley survey format file into my new fieldbook. And let's take a look at the VBA macros. So I have VBA macros here. However, none of them are the edited ones that I had before. So if you notice, these are all at 0, 0, 0, 90. In my other file, I didn't point it out, but I can real fast. Let's go look at my other file. So here we have all of the edited ones. All of these have values on them. I also have 98 features that have VBA macros. In this new one that I've imported, I only have 48. So again, Bentley's aware of this problem. A defect has been filed, and I do have a workaround. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this new fieldbook I created. I was trying to point out the problem that we have. So you would have to go back and manually update all of those VBA macros again, which is not a good process. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this new one that I created. And I am going to go back to the other fieldbook, and we are going to make some modifications to the point features that have VBA macros by using the rename tool. And then we're going to export that survey fieldbook as a spreadsheet. So I'm going to open up my survey details. So one of the things we want to do is, whenever we import this SQLite file into a new survey fieldbook, we're losing all those VBA macros that we've edited. So we want to have some way to sort and identify all of the points that have edited VBA macros whenever we re-import that. So the best way that I have found to do that is to use the rename tool and to put a special character in front of all of these points that have VBA macros assigned to them. So ORD does have a point rename tool, and it works pretty well. I'm going to demonstrate that on one of these, and then just to make sure it works and does what I want it to do, and then I'm going to do it on all of the points that have a VBA macro on it. So to rename a point, you can left click in this left column next to the point name. I'm sorry, you right click on it and go to Edit Selected Items Name. And I'm going to add a right bracket and then a plus sign. And the plus sign will add this prefix to your point name. You could do it the other way around and have the plus sign at the end. So they actually have a pretty good description of how to do this in the help document. And I have found that using underbars or asterisks or spaces, you can use underbars. It's asterisks or spaces that create issues. So stay away from asterisks and spaces when you're doing these prefixes using the point renaming tool, because if you want to revert these back to the original name, so you go back and rename them so they don't have this special character, those space bars and asterisks will somehow not make the point renaming tool work very well. So I'm just going to do this on this first one to make sure it does what I want it to do. And it did. So it added a right bracket to the very beginning of that. So now, no matter how I sort this, if I sort this by point name, that one's always going to stay at the top, even though it is not the first number in the sequential line here, because it has that special character. So let me sort this again by VBA Macro. And I'm going to go ahead and put that special character at the beginning of all 98 of these points that have VBA macros. So I can left click to select the first one there, go down to the end of my survey detail, or go down to the end of my VBA macro list and my survey details, do a shift and left click on this last one. And then I can right click in this leftmost column, do Edit Selected Items, Name, and add that same thing. So I'm going to add that right bracket and a plus symbol, and then click the green checkbox. And all of those point names now have a special character asterisk. So if for some reason you had another point down here that had this special character with the asterisk, or not the asterisk, the right bracket, you would want to use something different or change that other special character, because we want to use this to sort all of these with the VBA macros. So I now need to export this data into a spreadsheet. So I'm going to left click up in the top left box of my survey details to select all, and then right click in that leftmost box, and you will get an export option. Notice if I right click down here, I get a report on selected items, I get export selected items, but the only way to get a spreadsheet of all of my survey details is to right click in the upper leftmost column and go to export. So here I have my options to save it as a CSV and to save it as an Excel workbook with different types of Excel workbooks. So we could save it as a CSV. However, there are issues when we do that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to show you the issues. So test CSV is what I'm going to call it. So that is exported. And then I'm going to export it as an Excel spreadsheet, which is how it should be exported to work best. So I have now exported both of those files, so let me open them both. So here is my CSV file that I've exported. And the reason you cannot do a CSV file is because, let me sort by this so I can get all those VBA macros to the top. So you get some randomness in here, but then I've got all of my point numbers with that special character at the top. And if I go over to my VBA macro column, you'll notice since our VBA macros have commas in them, it's putting all of our VBA macros in separate columns. So it's creating issues. So you can't really do this. You probably could do it with a lot of editing to get things correct, but it's not worth it. So I'm going to go ahead and close this and then open up my Excel spreadsheet. So this is the same thing. I'm going to sort so that I can see all of my VBA macros. So now I have all my VBA macros. Notice the commas in them, but I have everything in one column, which is what I want, because we're essentially going to copy and paste this into our new survey field book. So, and I've got all of my points sorted over here. They're sorted in sequential order. So let's see how this is going to work. So now that I have renamed these points with that special character, I need to export this SQLite. I have exported my Excel with these special characters in the point names that have VBA macros. I now need to export my survey field book as an SQLite. So I'm going to right click, export to Bentley survey format. I'm just going to rewrite the one that I had before. And now I need to create a new field book. For demo purposes, I'm doing it in the same ORD file. However, you would likely be doing this in a new DGN. So I'm going to right click on that new field book name, import Bentley survey format. And I should now have let me click import. I should now have the point names with those special characters so that they will sort at the top. So let me drill into my survey details. And I am sorted by my point name. Notice all of my first ones have this special character, and my VBA macro list does not look the same as it did in my previous one. I have some VBA macros, but they are not the edited ones. So I need to get the edited ones from my Excel spreadsheet into my survey details, my new survey details, my new survey field book. So I want to make sure that my name is sorted correctly. My point names are sorted the same as they are in my survey details. You can just sort ascending by column A. Make sure that your point name is also sort ascending. I can verify that 50258T01 is my first one, 50258T01 is my first one, and I keep going up sequentially. Can go down here to the last one with this special character. It's 55205T11. 55205T11. That is my last one. So I have pretty high confidence that I have everything in order. So I'm going to go into my Excel spreadsheet, go to my macro column, right click and copy that column. And over in my survey details, I'm going to left click on the column header, right click down below that column header in one of the cells and do a paste. And there are 98 features with VBA macros. There's actually 5,000 or so features in this entire survey field book. So it will take a little bit of time to process through that. So it's going through each line and pasting it in here. So it has finished. Took maybe a minute and a half to do all of those. So I want to verify that it copied or that it pasted them in there correctly. So my first one, 50258, has this particular macro in it, cell angle 110. You can go over here, 50258, rotate cell angle 110. So that one's correct. Let me do another spot check here. Here is one, rotate cell line 20, yellow double to 90 degrees. That's the one I did, 50311 TO1. Let me verify that. 50311 TO1. Yep, that's the rotate cell line. Look 20 feet from yellow double. Look to the yellow double, 90 degrees. So that is correct. So I have pretty high confidence that all of these pasted in there in the correct location. I can go down to my last one. Here's one that's unique. 54295 TO9 is at 2. 54209 is at, I've got things, let me go to the last one. 55205 is at 20. So I go to my last one over here in my spreadsheet. 55205 is at 20. So I have pretty high confidence that it's legit. So I could also just graphically look at things and make sure that they look correct, and they do. Signs are rotated correctly. Arrows are rotated correctly. Poles are rotated correctly. So the one thing that you may also want to do is rename these features back to the way they were, or maybe you want to leave them, completely up to you. I would probably just leave them to know that I then had VBA macros on all of these. But you can rename them back to the way they were. So I always like to do a little test on one of them and then do it on the whole one before I wipe. Maybe make a mistake and mess everything up. So I can select this column. One second. I can select this first cell here, do a right click and do a replace. And in my replace tab of the find and replace tool, I want to look for that special character that I put in there, which is that right bracket. And I want to replace it with nothing, so I don't click anything in there or add anything in there. And I want to search my selected cells. And I'm going to hit find next and then replace. And notice you saw a little flash in the survey details and it took that first one away. So it is working. So what I want to do now is select all of these cells that have that special character, and I'm just left clicking and dragging while holding down my left mouse button. And if I go find next, it'll put me back at the beginning, and I can do a replace all. And all of those that had that special character have been changed back to the way they were. Notice there's 97 replaced. I had 98 before. I'd already changed one, so the math works. Go and say OK. Again, completely optional to do that. I probably would not do that. I would probably leave it alone, but it can be if that bothers you. So that is the process of getting your VBA macros from one survey field book to another, getting your edited VBA macros from one survey field book to another. You need to rename your points that have VBA macros, add a special character on there. You then need to save a spreadsheet of that survey details containing those point names with the special character and the VBA macros. You can then save it as a SQLite file, your survey field book. And in your new survey field book, you can import it and then copy and paste that VBA macro column into your VBA macro column in your survey details.